Hey guys, thank you so much for joining me. Welcome to the show. You are watching The Kim Iversen Show live. Tonight I've got a lot to talk about. We're going to try to get to everything, but we might not. So I'll tell you the big three things we're going to be talking about tonight. First of all, the vaccines don't seem to stop lockdowns. Unfortunately, Chile is battling a record surge despite having one of the largest vaccination campaigns in the world. Chile actually ranks fourth in the world as far as the vaccine rollout, and yet they have entered another lockdown. So we're going to be talking about that. What went wrong? What is going on down in Chile? And does that mean we are going to be having some doom coming to us in the fall? Also, Kamala Harris warns that new wars will not be fought over oil, but instead water. We're going to talk about that and how that is actually extremely dreadful to think about and what the actual implications of that would be. Also, Caitlyn Jenner is potentially going to be challenging Gavin Newsom during his California governor recall as a Republican. So we're going to dive into Caitlyn Jenner potentially running for governor of the state of California. That is all coming up tonight. Thank you guys so much for watching the show. Please remember to subscribe to the channel if you're new. Hit that bell. Also, those of you who'd like to support the show, there's a variety of ways to do that down in the links down below. And those of you who happen to watch the birthday show when I said I was going to give you guys some Destiny card readings, it's like a fun little hobby thing that I do on, just for fun. That video, the link is down below. So if you super chatted me and you requested a reading and you haven't seen it and you're wondering what's going on with that link to that video is down below and you will get your reading in that link. So be sure to check that out. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you can watch that video and it'll kind of explain what the hell I'm talking about right now. So let's go ahead and dive in to what is going on here. Vaccines don't seem to be stopping lockdown. Chile is battling a record surge even after having a sweeping vaccine rollout. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. Let me give you this story here. Whoops. Let me show you guys this story. Yeah. I didn't have this. Here it is. Here's from The Guardian. Chile imposes lockdowns to fight new COVID wave despite vaccination success. So Chile ranks fourth in the world. Let me show you Chile in the vaccination campaign. Here is the map that the New York Times, they track the vaccine rollout all around the world. And anywhere, the darker it is, the more vaccines that they've distributed per population. And when you look at this map, what do you see? You see Chile down at the bottom here, down in South America, in the dark green. So Chile is one of the few countries in the world that is actually vaccinated quite a few of its population. They've vaccinated over 30% of their population. When you look down here, vaccinations by country, the number one country in the world is Israel. They have fully vaccinated 55% of their population and vaccinated at least with a jab. It says right here 59%. I've actually heard the number is closer to much, much higher than that. Although that number now I think might take into consideration, now that I think about it, their youth. They had vaccinated, I believe, 90 or 95% of their population over a certain age. But I think when they calculate in the youth, which they're not able to vaccinate because we don't have authorization for vaccines for people under the age of, I believe, 16, then maybe that number drops down to 59%. But Israel is in the lead, vaccinating quite a bit of their population. Over half of their population has been fully vaccinated. Seychelles is 39% fully vaccinated, Monaco 23%, and Chile right here 22% fully vaccinated, 37% have at least received one dose of the vaccine. And we know, according to news reports, that one dose of the vaccine gives quite a bit of protection. They're saying that there's 80% protection against the virus if you've been at least vaccinated after 2 weeks of one dose. Once you get the second dose after 2 weeks, you've got, they're saying that the effectiveness is about 91%. They keep lowering that number down. Started off being 98%, then they lowered it down to 95%. As of today, they're claiming that the effectiveness of the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines are at 91%. So we'll see if that drops even further, and it might now that we're looking at what's going on in Chile. So let's go back to this story here. So Chile imposing lockdowns. So now they've vaccinated fully nearly a quarter of their population. They're also doing it based on, they're going after the most vulnerable in the population. And they've nearly vaccinated, or they've at least done one dose of the vaccine to at least 1/3 of their population. So that is an impressive vaccine rollout. You would think if you've had that many people in your population vaccinated to some level that you would see some benefit from that when the virus comes around, you would at least see some lowering of the numbers, lowering of hospitalizations. You would see fewer. That would be the idea, that there would be some benefit from that. Yet here we are. Chile is actually having record number of cases, and the hospitals are filling up. They say there's patients in hallways, and they've now had to go into a lockdown. Now, one big question people would have is, what did Israel do? Because Israel is seeing a decline in their cases. They're right up there with Chile. What is the difference? Why? And I've seen these news articles out there, Israel versus Chile. What is the issue here? Why Israel is a success story with their vaccination program, and Chile is some doom and gloom and a cautionary tale. Well, it's really simple why Chile would have such an issue and Israel wouldn't. And that is because Chile is now entering their fall and winter. They're in the southern hemisphere. Israel has the benefit of entering their spring and summer. And we know that the virus diminishes and becomes less virulent, or it becomes, people are outdoors more, where there's more ventilation. Of course, here in the United States, the areas that have to be careful are those in the really hot regions like Arizona, Texas, Florida, where people start to go indoors and hunker down inside. These are areas of the country where in the winter, they're out and about. They're not like the northern states where people hunker down in the winter and then they get the virus and it surges in places like the Northwest and the Northeast and just the northern region of the United States. The southern region of the United States has to be wary of the summer. That is when, Arizona's seeing 115 degrees, 120 degree weather. They can't be outdoors. So they go indoors, and that's when we see a surge. So we're going to see this summer what happens with the vaccine rollout and our southern states if we see a dent in the virus. But what we're seeing in Chile right now, as they enter their fall, as they enter into their winter months where we know they're going to see the surge, we're seeing that doesn't seem to be any real benefit right now at this point to them having a third or a quarter of their population vaccinated. So what the hell does that mean for us when summer hits in those southern states? And what the hell does that mean for us in the fall when the virus comes back around? Clearly, going and one thing that I mentioned in a previous show was that the vaccine, if we really want to know how effective it is, it's unfair to, go out there and roll out the vaccine in places like Israel, in the United States, in other areas of the world, and then say, wow, see, it's successful when the rollout began as the virus was already on the decline. So you can't really attribute the virus going down to low numbers. Here in California, they're actually saying we might fully open up June 15th. It's like a miracle. We're going to actually open everything back to normal, except there's going to be mask mandates. That's the only thing that's going to be as of June 15th because of the record, the cases have diminished and hospitalizations are diminishing. Well, they don't know if that's the vaccine. They don't know if that's just the weather. They don't know, because they rolled out the vaccine as the virus was already on the decline. However, to really know, you would need to go down to the southern hemisphere right before their surge, and you start vaccinating them during their summer so that when their fall and when their winter hits, did this thing work? And Pfizer was the company. That's another question a lot of you are thinking, well, which vaccine was it? What was the vaccine Chile had? Pfizer. They got the Pfizer vaccine, along with the Chinese vaccine. Two different types of vaccines. One's an mRNA. The Chinese vaccine is the only vaccine in the world that actually uses samples from the actual virus of SARS-CoV-2. And they created a very traditional vaccine, very much the types of vaccines that we've all had with a variety of other ailments. And that alongside, but mostly the Pfizer vaccine was given out in Chile, and we're not seeing a dent. In fact, when you look at this chart right here, these are the new daily COVID cases in Chile. You see here that, let's go ahead and show this. You see here that there is more cases. See the cases now, how that number right there, it's going up. It's higher than their peak last winter for them. So their peak is June. Starting in April of last year, they were down lower here. And then it goes up June, July. In July, it starts to kind of go back down as they entered into their spring. And people forget about that. People forget that the Southern Hemisphere has reverse seasons. So for them, our winter is their summer. Our summer is their winter. And that's what's happening. So, what does Chile have to say about this? Well, they say it's the new variant. That's what they're claiming. They're claiming that it has to do with the new variant, that it's, they're not really sure. They think the vaccine, it worked. So, what's going on here? And they're saying, well, it's the new variant. Although Pfizer and Moderna and them are coming out saying, no, our vaccine works against the new variant. I don't know how you explain Chile then, if that's the case. We should be seeing some sort of dent in the cases, some sort of dent in the hospitalizations, and instead they're seeing more than they saw last winter for them. It's going higher, not lower. You would think that maybe there would still be some cases, maybe there would still be some hospitalizations, but it shouldn't be more than when they had no one vaccinated last winter. So, the big question then is, what does that mean? What does that mean for us going forward? What does that mean for these vaccines? Again, I think, there very well could be short-term benefit to the vaccine. It could work against some variants and not against others. I don't know. But this whole idea that the vaccine is going to save us, I think that needs to be looked at again. And not, look, I don't want to create any more vaccine hesitancy than there already is. Plenty of people don't feel comfortable taking a medicine that is not fully FDA approved. In fact, Pfizer and Moderna, just want to show you this article here, they're seeking FDA approval. This is just something everybody should see, because a lot of people think that these are FDA approved, and just to prove to you apparently that they're not FDA approved. Here's an article from April 1st. Pfizer BioNTech eye full FDA approval for COVID-19 vaccine as efficiency stands strong, including against aggressive variant, according to them. Although Chile will tell you something a little different. So Pfizer and BioNTech offered an updated look at their efficiency of COVID-19 vaccine. The overall efficiency figure remained high at 91.3%, and the shot showed it can protect against a notoriously hard to tackle variant first identified in South Africa. Says the pair's mRNA vaccine is 91.3% effective against symptomatic COVID-19 disease, as measured in people who have been immunized with second dose of the shot for up to 6 months, the company said Thursday. So they're saying that the new efficiency data, plus a safety analysis comprising data from more than 12,000 people who were fully immunized for at least 6 months, allow the companies to file a drug application with the FDA to turn the shot's emergency use authorization into full approval. So that is what they're looking for. They're wanting full approval. Now, that's going to potentially take years. I mean, who knows? It depends on how political I assume the FDA is, but there's a lot of reports of side effects. There's even reports of deaths, and that has to be fully investigated. Are those deaths truly attributed to the vaccine? Are they attributed to something else? Right now, when people report there's a death shortly after a vaccine, they say, well, it could have been something else. Maybe it wasn't the vaccine. So that all has to be taken into consideration. That has to be investigated, and they really shouldn't be given any sort of full FDA approval until we see what happens in the Southern Hemisphere to people that have already had the shot. So what is going to happen in Chile is a really big question. So what does that mean for us? We don't know what that means for us, but it doesn't look good, to be honest with you. Obviously in the summer, last summer, we opened up a bit more. People were, they felt safer in the summer, being outdoors more. There's more sunshine. There's more ventilation in a lot of the country. We won't know what's going to go on in the south of America, southern United States at this point. That's yet to be seen. And this fall, if if the virus surges this summer in those southern states, they might go into a lockdown. And this fall, if the virus continues to surge or if there's new variants and they're not working, the vaccine doesn't work against them, then we might not be out of the woods, is essentially what the point is of this. We might not be out of the woods. We might be going into another lockdown. And you would hope that they would have learned their lesson from all of the other lockdowns, that lockdowns don't work. They're not working. And if the vaccine doesn't work as well as they wanted, maybe it works a little, one can hope. But if it doesn't work as well as they thought, then they need to be focusing on other things like treatments. If you get the virus, they give you some medicine, kind of like Tamiflu when you get the flu, and it subsides the symptoms. And I know that the Israelis were working on a drug like that, a therapy drug that that they claim is extremely effective, but it's going through the trials. And that is, we shouldn't be putting all of our eggs in one basket. And we put all of our eggs in one basket, and it was a bad plan. And now with what's going on in Chile, it looks like it's a really bad plan to go hide until there was a vaccine, because all that did was cause a panic for a rushed vaccine. All the governments wanted to reopen. They knew that we cannot survive with people just sheltering in place. Economies do have to go on. And all the people that said, well, it's money over lives. Money is lives. That's what unfortunately, that's just the reality of the world, all around the world, not just here in the United States, where people are very, very greedy and medical makes a ton of money. Can I just do a side note on this? So today because this just made me think of something about how much money is in the medical industry here in the United States. I was doing a Google satellite view of my neighborhood, and I wanted to see where there were some empty lots. Not that I could afford to buy a lot and build a house, but I just wanted to see. And I was noticing that there were all these empty lots kind of nearby. And I noticed one. Suddenly, I noticed in the satellite the full-size basketball court, painted Lakers basketball court. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, who owns this? And it was a big house that bought not only the house that they have an enormous, huge $3 million house on, but then they bought the 2 additional lots next to their house. So they bought up 2 additional lots worth millions of dollars, and they put a big Lakers basketball court on that lot. And I'm thinking, who the hell this must be somebody really rich, and not even a basketball player. Maybe if it were a really, really famous one, because I'm thinking, is that a Laker that lives there, or a former Laker? And I go and I look it up, and I'm able to figure this out by sleuthing around with the address of this house to figure out who lives there. That it's a big medical industry guy. The guy makes $10 million a year off of, now he's like the CEO of all the veterinary clinics. There's a bunch of veterinary clinics all around the country. But before that, he was running as a CEO of a bunch of medical, emergency sort of urgent cares and a variety of other types of places. And it was just sickening to see that in this country, you could make so much money that you could buy a 5,000 square foot house and 2 subsequent lots right next to the ocean and put a basketball court just because you feel like it, because you made money off of sick people. That's how this country works. And it was just really disgusting. It was really disgusting to see. But, even then, even though the United States has an outrageous medical system that is profiting off of people having disease and being sick, no matter where you are in the world, no one in the world can afford to just hunker down, shelter in place, and wait for a vaccine. That is just not realistic. People have to work. People have to eat. It's livelihood. It's the way the economies need to happen. Food needs to be distributed. Even if it's not about money, it's about just the supply chain. All that has to operate. And so this was a bad plan to hunker down, shelter in place, and wait for a vaccine. And now we're seeing maybe the vaccine doesn't work as well as they hoped. And so now what? That is going to be the big question moving forward. But wanted to share that with you, what is going on in Chile. And we will keep our eyes on it as well as other areas of the world. Right now, Chile is really the only country in the south that has had the vaccine to the levels of some of the more, the United States. They're beating us on vaccine rollout, and the UK and whatnot. So we're going to continue to watch and see what goes on in that southern hemisphere. Definitely will be, I think, foreshadowing of what potentially is going to happen here in the United States as we go past our summer and into fall and into winter. So I don't know. Outlook not so good right now. We'll see. We'll see. All right. Moving on with the show. Kamala Harris says that new wars will not be fought over oil, but instead over water. Take a look at this.
And here's the other thing, because I also, I'm in a lot of meetings on foreign policy. For years and generations, wars have been fought over oil. In a short matter of time, they will be fought over water. So when we think about building up our economy around our infrastructure on something like water policy, it's literally about jobs. It's about the fundamental source of life that Tammy Duckworth was talking about. It will sustain life. And it's about strengthening up our nation around a commodity that is a precious commodity.
Okay, so, wow. New wars are not going to be fought over oil, but over water. That is pretty scary. And unfortunately, very, very true. And what does this mean exactly for us here in the United States and really for those all around the world? I don't think that the wars are necessarily going to happen anytime soon over water as far as like in the next year or two, but I do think that it will happen. And the way that we are going to do it is by controlling water supply. So water supply being controlled by powers allows powers to have leverage and control over those who are kind of the haves versus the have-nots. And the United States is obviously a haves country. There's other haves countries that are working towards this goal of controlling water supply. And that is very, very scary. Let's go ahead and take a look at a map right here. This is the map of, this is the water supply. Why is this not connecting? Let me just reconnect this. Sometimes my connection goes down on the things that I want to show you. All right, here is a map of a water supply map. Now, what this map is in particular is water supply versus consumption. So areas of the world as it's darker red, those are areas of the world that are using higher rates of consumption than their natural resources allow. So it's more competition amongst users, essentially, with this map. And as you can see, the United States is in deep trouble as far as how much water we consume versus how much we actually have. We're over-consuming water when you look at this map. India is also over-consuming water. You've got this, Iran is using way more water than they, Saudi Arabia. Obviously, they don't have a lot of water in the desert, so they're definitely using more water than they actually can supply. Europe, you've got some real issues going on in Italy, Spain, you've got some areas here in China. This is China and Russia a little bit, or China, that's China. And Russia's actually looking pretty good. Maybe we all should be moving to Russia for some water. In Canada, Alaska. You can go to Alaska. So you've got, this map showing that really the heavily populated areas of the world, no surprise, are seeing way more water consumption than their natural resources can actually support. Now, also, let's take a look at, what would this look like as far as war and what wars have there been over water? And that'll kind of give us an idea of what kind of war and how it would play out when we have these wars over water in the future. So let's look at some of these notable conflicts here. This one right here. So right here in 1948, India and Pakistan had a dispute over the sharing of water rights to the Indus River and its tributaries. An agreement was reached after 5 weeks, and the dispute was followed by the signing of the Indus Waters Treaty in 1960. So right there is water sharing, fighting over water sharing. That is one way for there to be a war over water. In 1979, Egyptian President Anwar Sadat said that if Egypt were to ever go to war again, it would be over water. Separately, amidst Egypt-Ethiopia relations, Ethiopian Prime Minister Meles Zenawi said, "I am not worried that the Egyptians will suddenly invade Ethiopia. Nobody who has tried that has lived to tell the story. Conflict between Egypt and Ethiopia over the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam escalated in 2020. Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed warned that no force can stop Ethiopia from building a dam. If there is a need to go to war, we could get millions readied." Now so that was in 2020. Also in 2020, China has built 11 dams on the Mekong River, which flows from China through Myanmar, Laos, Thailand, Cambodia, and Vietnam to the South China Sea. Experts fear that China's ability to control the Mekong's flow gives it leverage over downstream nations who rely on China's goodwill. Could you imagine? So in 2018, water levels in the Mekong River fell to the lowest in more than 100 years, even during the annual monsoon season. The Jinghan Dam, as of January 2020, the nearest Chinese dam upstream of the Thai border, has caused huge fluctuations in river levels, affecting people's livelihoods downstream by disrupting the river's natural cycle. So you can see right there, I mean, this should all of a sudden make everybody kind of wake up a little bit. When a country like China can control the downstream water source to these other countries, that gives China a lot of leverage. It's very dangerous because if the water levels were to get really low, then China could actually say, sorry, we're going to survive and you're not. Sorry about your luck, but we control the water and we need the water and we're going to consume the water. That is one thing that could possibly happen. But another thing that could happen is just using it as leverage. And this is something the United States knows well because we did this when it came to oil for so many decades. And that is when you control the oil supply, you control the not only the narrative, but you control the behavior of other countries. And when you don't like what they've got going on, you can cut off their oil supply. You can do a lot of things to them to damage them. And oil is water, right? They say oil is water, oil is gold, oil is a life source. And water is a genuine, actual life source. You can actually get by without oil. You cannot get by without water. So it'll be more valuable and it'll be more destructive, and the wars will be worse. The wars will be bigger and they'll be uglier because it really is life and death for people when it comes to their water supply. So when, they point out here that China is controlling the water supply that's going to go down to Myanmar, Laos, Thailand, Cambodia, and Vietnam into the South China Sea. That means China has a lot of leverage over those countries. But it's not just China. We're going to look at other countries that potentially could be having this sort of leverage. When you look at even just what's going on right now in the nation of Israel, you've got the Palestinian and the Israeli water issue, which is a serious issue going on over in Israel and Palestine. And what's happening there is that Israel has full water rights over the Palestinians. They control 100% of the water for the Palestinians. And they control, the Palestinians are supposed to build out their infrastructure for water. But in order for them to build out the infrastructure, they need to get Israeli permission. And the Israelis don't often or easily or swiftly give them permission to build out infrastructure in order to supply their population with water. It's a control mechanism. It's a way to hopefully rid them, to say, look, your life is so miserable here. Why don't you just leave? There's other places you could go. You could go to Jordan. You can go to America. You can go somewhere other than here because your life is so miserable because we don't give you running water every day. Now, in Palestine, what's going on there is because the Palestinians don't have running water on a regular basis, they have to put water tanks on their roofs, and they store their water. On the days that they do have running water, they try to fill up the tanks as much as possible. And then the days that they don't have running water, they use the water in the tanks. If for some reason the water doesn't flow on a day it's supposed to flow, that obviously makes the Palestinian people panic. Or if something were to happen to their water tank, it's damaged in some way, that obviously would cause them to panic. That's their life source. So when you ask the Israelis about it, they say, well, it's not our fault. They're responsible for their own water, their water supply, for the distribution. They're responsible for the distribution. But again, the Israelis are the ones in charge. They're the ones who give the Palestinians the permits to fortify or build or rebuild or even repair their water sources, their water infrastructure. People are not even allowed to dig wells in their own private yard without Israeli permission. This is why we don't really see new Palestinian towns in the West Bank. Meanwhile, we see loads of Israeli settlements popping up everywhere. Those Israeli settlements have running water 24/7, just like you and I do here in the United States. The Palestinians, on the other hand, only get running water 3 to 4 days a week. And then the rest of the time, it has to go into the water tanks, and they have to use that reserve water for the days that they're not receiving running water. And the Israelis say, well, it's not our fault. You know, the settlements get the water 24/7, but they're the ones with the permits. But they fail to mention that they're not giving the permits at all to the Palestinians. It's a control mechanism. It's one of the biggest issues that they're fighting about over in that conflict, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Water is a big one. Then when the Palestinian people don't have access to running water every day, they're not able to bathe every day. They're not able to have the level of hygiene that and so then the Israelis look at them and they point at them and they say, see, they're dirty. Look at those dirty Palestinians. They stink. They don't bathe. There's all of these issues. And it really comes down to controlling that water supply. So controlling water is a big deal. And that has a lot to do with, that is going to be, I think Kamala Harris is right in that is going to be where the wars are fought in the future. And we're seeing and taking notes from how the Israelis are able to control the Palestinians using water, how the Chinese are now gaining leverage over those in Southeast Asia because of water supply. We're seeing this unfold in front of our very eyes. So those of us who are very much paying attention to the military-industrial complex, paying attention to the oil wars, should really be paying attention to these new potential water wars that are going to be happening and looking at what is the United States doing? What are the steps that the United States taking in order to control water sources? Because that is where we're going to see those future conflicts. Follow the water now, right? Rather than looking for oil everywhere we go. And a lot of people still kind of are in that mindset of, oh, it's always about the oil. It's not always going to be about the oil. And Kamala Harris opened up her big mouth, thankfully, and shared what the future will be. And the United States will be, you can bet the United States is going to be very much in on that game of trying to control water resources. And that is really, really scary. We're going to see that going on in the future. And, that's a really, really scary prospect. So keep our eyes open. Let's keep our eyes open for the moves that the U.S. is making, deals that are struck, dams that are built, wanting to secure certain regions or making friendships with certain regions of the world, trying to control water supply, I think is a big, huge thing to be looking at. Maybe that's why Trump wanted to buy Greenland. Maybe it had to do with that. They got all the glaciers, water coming from the glaciers. So maybe that had something to do with it. But let's keep our eyes open on that. All right, let's move on here. Caitlyn Jenner is exploring the possibility of running for governor against Gavin Newsom in California. So Caitlyn Jenner, this is really interesting. Didn't really think that Caitlyn Jenner had political ambitions, but maybe she does. She would be running as a Republican. Caitlyn Jenner did support Donald Trump in 2016 and then renounced her support for Donald Trump when he started kind of going after trans and transgender rights, and but still remains a staunch Republican and is actually thinking about going up against Gavin Newsom when Gavin Newsom is on the recall, when he's being recalled, which is looking more and more likely he is going to be recalled. So according to sources, now here's the story. This is from The Hill. It says Caitlyn Jenner is reportedly eyeing a bid for governor of California. The former Keeping Up with the Kardashians reality TV star and Olympian. Don't you like how they do that? It's not Olympian. I mean, Caitlyn Jenner, when Caitlyn was Bruce, was known for, obviously was one of the world's greatest, if not the world's greatest Olympian ever. And that was really what Bruce Jenner was known for. And now they're saying, oh, keeping up with the Kardashians, that's your fame. That's your claim to fame. I mean, my gosh, what has your life come to, Caitlyn? Says the former Keeping Up with Kardashians reality TV star and Olympian is talking with political consultants as she actively explores a run in the Golden State, Axios reported on Tuesday. Jenner's manager, Sophia Hutchins, has previously shot down the idea of a gubernatorial bid. However, the manager said Jenner has never considered running for governor, is very happy doing what she is doing to promote LGBT rights and spending time with her 18 grandchildren and 10 children. Says Hutchins says in February, Jenner, 71, came out as transgender in 2015. But according to Axios, the longtime Republican is exploring a run with the help of GOP fundraiser Caroline Wren as California Governor Gavin Newsom faces a recall effort. Jenner had previously flirted with a political bid in 2017, saying at the time that she had considered running for Senate in California. Quote, I like the political side of it, Jenner said. A challenge in the state to Democratic State Senator Dianne Feinstein never materialized. So a spokesman for Jenner is not speaking up at the moment. So we'll see if Caitlyn Jenner is serious about running for governor. I've wondered who would challenge Gavin Newsom. I just kind of assumed that what would happen is maybe people in California would recall Gavin Newsom, but go for another Democrat. Last time a recall happened in 2013 and 2003 against Gray Davis, Arnold Schwarzenegger ran against Gray Davis in that recall effort and won. So many of us have been wondering who's a big enough name, who could get the vote out, who could actually gain enough of the blue supporters to challenge Gavin Newsom and win. And interestingly, Caitlyn Jenner, I mean, look, you know, you've got Republicans, so all the Republicans are going to vote for a Republican. Now, you might get some Republicans who say, well, yeah, but, you know, because Republicans are tending to be more bigoted towards trans, right? So you might have some that are saying, I don't, you know, that I don't believe in that. I don't like that. I'm not going to support that. But that's not really California Republicans. California Republicans are different than, let's say, Arkansas Republicans. So you've got a different breed of Republican in California, more liberal than other areas of the country. And what are the Democrats going to do? What are Democrat voters going to do when they shun? Are they really going to shun and turn their back on a transgender woman? That's where it gets really tricky. And maybe that's what Caitlyn Jenner's thinking. Like maybe she's thinking, look, you know, you've got the Dems, which are really, really into identity politics and cancel culture and supporting women and supporting trans. And here I am, a trans woman. And are they really going to say, you are not what we want? You do not represent the Democratic Party. And so therefore, you know, are they going to demonize a trans woman? Is that what they're going to do? I'm sure they will. I'm sure they'll figure out a way to, of course, demonize a trans woman. It'll be really interesting, the backflips that they have to do in order to do that. But that's why this is so interesting. If Caitlyn Jenner actually did go against Gavin Newsom, it will really shake things up in California. This is not, you know, back in 2003, Arnold Schwarzenegger, a lot of Democrats voted for him because they were just enthralled by the idea of Arnold Schwarzenegger. Even though he's running as a Republican, they still thought, well, yeah, but, you know, he seems cool and he's famous and he says this and he's Hollywood. And Caitlyn Jenner, I mean, that's going to be a really interesting. If not Caitlyn, I don't know who. And I don't know who could possibly get that blue vote from those who are now in 2021 really clenching on to that identity politics stuff, really clenching on to we want inclusivity. And Caitlyn Jenner would really represent that. So that'll be really, really interesting. Speaking of Caitlyn Jenner, just an update to Arkansas. The Arkansas governor, Asa, how do you say Asa's name? It was Asa Hutchinson. Now, what happened yesterday was that the legislature in Arkansas passed a bill that banned the ability for minors to start going through gender therapy or gender transition in the variety of, there's a spectrum of things that a person could do when they're seeking potentially a transition. There's many, many steps. And the Arkansas legislature banned minors, even though 17 or 16 or those hitting puberty, from potentially going through this transition phase. Even if their doctors approve of it, even if their parents approve of it, even if everybody in their life is on board with it, the Arkansas legislature felt like they have more knowledge than the person going through it, and they decided to ban it. Now, Asa Hutchinson, on the other hand, came out, also a Republican governor, came out and said, whoa, 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 not so fast. Actually, this is what he said regarding the ban.
I was told this week that the nation is looking at Arkansas because I have on my desk another bill passed by the General Assembly that is a product of the cultural war in America. I don't shy away from the battle when it is necessary and defensible, but the most recent action of the General Assembly, while well-intended, is off course, and I must veto House Bill 1570.
Okay. So I agreed with Governor Asa Hutchinson. I felt like that was absolutely right. The government should stay out of your body. And in particular with this, when people say my body, my choice, the biggest counter to that coming from the right is, yeah, but it's not really your body, it's a baby, right? When they're talking about pro-choice, pro-life, they say, yeah, but it's not your body. There's actually somebody else's body inside of you, and it's their body, and we're protecting their rights. Okay, I can understand that argument. I don't agree with it necessarily, but I understand that argument. I can understand the logic in that argument. However, how do you then go and then say, yeah, but I'm also going to control your body, even though it has absolutely nothing to do with somebody else? So it's not my body, my choice anymore when it comes to a 16 or 17-year-old wanting to go through transition. Their doctors agree with it. Their parents agree with it. They're wanting to start the process. That is what they've chosen to do. They've thought about it. Maybe they're really depressed. Maybe there's a lot going on with them. And so what exactly is the Republican argument then? You can't say, well, it's not really your body, your choice, right? There's a baby. Well, there's no baby involved in this. There's no other person involved with this. It's extremely personal, individual. It has nothing to do with you or me. If somebody decides to transition, it literally has nothing to do with you or me. So what exactly is their counter on that for this? I think this really goes to show sort of the hypocrisy or just the lack of argument, really, that it's not about, oh, well, it's about the baby, we're protecting the baby, or any of that. I think when they go and they try to ban people from making medical decisions for themselves that have nothing to do with you or I, it just goes to show that they're wanting to implement their own morality on other people, that they're wanting to force their authoritarian morality on others. So I felt like Governor Asa Hutchinson was right when he said, I don't think the government should be doing that. Fair enough. So he vetoes the bill. Well, today, the Arkansas legislature got together and they essentially vetoed his veto. They overrode his veto by gaining a 2/3 majority vote and overturning in the checks and balances process the governor's veto. So now in the state of Arkansas, if you and your doctors and your parents agree that you should get some sort of medical treatment, they have banned it. If you are a minor, you're not allowed. And that's that. You're not allowed to get that treatment in the state of Arkansas because apparently these politicians want to control your body. They want to control your choices, even though it has absolutely nothing to do with anybody else. It is truly personal. It is truly individual. The people in the state of Arkansas legislature have decided that they know better than you when it comes to your medical decisions. That is a shame. I think every Republican should push back on this. If they're true Republicans, if they're truly about freedom, if they're truly about government not interfering in the choices of individuals, individual liberty, individual freedom, all the things that Republicans claim that they stand for, if they really did, then they would stop this sort of nonsense of trying to control other people in their lives when it literally has absolutely nothing to do with them. What does it matter to you if I decide tomorrow I want to transition to become a man? Does it have anything to do with you personally? No, it doesn't. And it doesn't affect anyone else. It is really, truly my own choice. So that is just kind of an update of what happened in Arkansas. I talked about this yesterday on the show thinking, wow, this governor did this. But then the legislature goes and they decide, no, we know better. Our morality rules. You're not allowed your own morality, your own decisions. It's your life, but it's our rules and you're going to abide by them. So that's what happened in Arkansas. Only in Arkansas. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching the show. That is all I've got for you tonight. I'm going to save what I've got. I've got some other stories that I wanted to get to, but I'm going to save them for tomorrow. for you guys. I'm going to do a little bit more research and get those together a little bit better for you and save them. One of them has to do with China, the Belt and Road Initiative, and ISIS and Mozambique. So definitely be sure to stay tuned for that, because people are going in the wrong direction when they're looking at the attack from ISIS on Mozambique that happened at the end of March. And I'm going to expose how that has a lot to do with what we've already been looking at, which is following the Belt and Road Trail and seeing how ISIS seems to be popping up everywhere the Belt and Road Initiative is scheduled to be. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow. Be sure to tune in for that. Otherwise, guys, I am done for the night. Thank you so much for joining me. Please be sure to stick around for the after show. Good night, guys.